A routine doctor's appointment. A 4-year-old girl. 7 minutes behind a closed door. Inside the quiet clinic, nothing seemed unusual. Patients waited. The hallway was silent. When the door opened, everything looked normal. But outside, her mother noticed something. A small, damp stain on her daughter's sleeve. Something tiny, easy to ignore. But that single detail would trigger a criminal investigation and a courtroom battle that would change Canadian law forever. The little girl's name was Maya. She had come to the clinic for a routine checkup. The doctor was someone families trusted, a professional, an authority figure. Inside the room, he made a simple request. He asked to speak with the child alone for a few minutes. For most parents, that moment would raise no alarm. Doctors do it all the time. And for 7 quiet minutes, the door stayed closed. Maya's mother noticed the stain again. Small, damp, strange. Brushing it off at first, a quiet unease settled in. She gently asked her daughter what had happened. The little girl explained in the simple, fragile language of a child. She said the doctor used something she called a birdie. When doctors conducted a more careful examination, their expressions changed. What they found could not be ignored. The routine visit was over. Something was very wrong, and it was only beginning to surface. Police began collecting evidence and medical tests, but one piece mattered more than anything else: the child's explanation. Investigators believed Maya's simple, sometimes confusing words described something serious. Charges were filed, and the case headed to court. But inside that courtroom, the biggest obstacle was not the forensic evidence. It was the law itself. During the trial, the judge ruled that 4-year-old Maya was too young to understand the meaning of an oath. She could not testify. The judge also rejected the mother's account as inadmissible hearsay. Without their voices, the prosecution's case collapsed. The doctor was acquitted. Had the legal system become too rigid to hear the voice of a child? But the story didn't end there. Prosecutors appealed, taking the case all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. The judges faced a massive question. Should strict legal rules silence vulnerable witnesses? The decision would reshape how courts across Canada treated evidence from young victims. The stakes were now enormous. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court introduced a new legal principle. Hearsay evidence could now be allowed if it was both necessary and reliable. This allowed courts to hear from vulnerable witnesses, even when traditional testimony was impossible. The decision, known as R.V. Khan, was a moment when the law evolved. Because sometimes justice begins with something small: a mother's concern and the simple words of a child. Following the ruling, a new trial was ordered. With the child's words finally admitted as evidence, the doctor was convicted. The case of the birdie and the damp stain fundamentally changed the Canadian legal system. It ensured that children's voices would never again be silenced by a technicality. For victims across the country, the law was no longer silent. The truth had finally been heard.